All right, so welcome again. In the previous session, we discussed about segmentation and targeting, and as also discussed, please make sure that we understand the STP, segmentation, targeting, positioning concepts. Okay, because no matter you do, that helps you to understand the STP helps you to understand how you can contribute to the organization through the role that you're doing in your organization. So regardless the role that you do, either accounting, finance, R&D, quality, manufacturing, or marketing, sales, and so on and so forth. All right. So the concept, please make sure that you understand this. Okay. And we also discussed the perspectives, different perspectives of viewing the market that drives us to understand different targeting strategy. Okay, and whether a company adopts mass marketing strategy or undifferentiated targeting strategy or micro targeting strategy, or in between, the micro targeting strategy, which is basically driven by the belief or the perspective that the customers are different. All customers are different. Okay, small business normally adopts this strategy. They are flexible to adjust to customize their offering for their customers. In saying that, business to business marketing may also adopt it. Okay, and in between, we also have the third belief that is adopted by companies that view the market that we understand the customers are not the same, the customers are different, but we can still group them based on their similarities and differences, right? So these companies adopt the segmented targeting approach, okay? So they segment the market and then they decide whether they want to offer different products or services for different market segments, or they want to capitalize all resources just to create one offering. Okay, so that's the targeting concept that we discussed. We also discussed the segmentation concept that revolves around the dividing large population, small market segments, and we also discussed that there are more than one segmentation approach that marketers can adopt. Okay, and in these units you can refer to the 4 segmentation variables. Okay, now we come to the positioning. As discussed before, positioning is actually about the how the product is defined by the consumers based on its important attributes. Okay, now let's have a look at the concept positioning. Okay, there are a few things that we are going to discuss in this topic, okay, in this positioning topic. So again, positioning is basically about how the product is defined by the consumers based on its important attributes. And to get to that point, marketers also need to consider what we call as differentiation, okay, because how the product is defined by the consumers is actually also determine whether the consumers can understand it. And to make the customers understand what we offer for our brand, we also need to show how different we are. Otherwise, they may find, yeah, you just the same thing as that guy. Okay. Now, differentiation is actually defined by the activities to make our offering different to the competitors in the market. Okay, why do we do that? Because we want to create what we call as competitive advantage. Okay, we want to create what we call as competitive advantage. Why do we offer differentiation? Because that leads us to competitive advantage. If we can differentiate ourselves, then we can actually build our competitive advantage. Okay, what do we mean by competitive advantage? Well, it is the ability to offer the same benefits for the consumers with cheaper price, or with the ability to offer something that is more expensive, but we can show we can create a better value for the customers, right? So that's what we mean by competitive advantage. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an idea in terms of differentiation. Okay, and here we actually have what we call as the generic competitive strategies that again Marco Porter develops these some time ago. We have based on this dimension, cost, and also competitive scope, whether it is going to be broad target or narrow target, so we can have lower cost and differentiation. From competitive advantage perspective, we can generate 4 generic competitive strategies. Okay, in the cost leadership strategy, here we say that we want to win the competition through costs. Okay, so we manage the cost. So the company that has that decides to adopt this strategy should be able to manage the low cost structure in their operation. You can look at a number of businesses that actually focus on managing their costs. And the next one is actually the differentiation strategy. If you look at that, the company that adopts that will focus on making their offering different to their oppositions, right? So they will invest in R&D and so on and so forth to make sure that they can offer something different, or the consumers can find the differences between their offering to the competitors' offering. Okay, so the consumers will perceive it is more valuable. Okay, so that's the one that they are going to invest. Okay, and of course in the narrow targets we have the focus strategy and focus differentiation based strategies, basically to help the company developing the generic competitive strategies. Okay, so you can have a look at your texts for that one. Okay, and just briefly, we have the physical and perceptual positioning. The physical positioning, basically using the physical attributes, physical characteristics of the product that we offer, whilst the next one is perceptual positioning, is basically about how the consumers perceive them. This slide here shows the differences between the 2 approaches, the physical and perceptual positioning approach. Okay. All right. So again, we come back to the positioning. I hope that you have got the idea in terms of what positioning is. Okay. Okay. There are several components of positioning, or to be more precise, there are 4 critical components of positioning. We have the target consumers, frame of reference, point of difference, and reason to believe. And actually, in a positioning statement, we capture them. We need to capture them. Okay. So, in other words, the positioning is actually the bridge between the consumers and what the company is offering. Okay. Or you can also argue that positioning is actually the promise that the company wants to deliver for the customers. Well, actually, if you think about it further, if a company promises to deliver A, okay, that means the company also promises that they are not going to deliver everything beyond A. Okay. In other words, the company is making a strategic decision to select the trade-off. Okay, because any positioning that they want to develop, they need to ensure they have the capability to deliver. Okay, so if we say that our company is focusing on the luxury premium offering, in other words, we have made the decision, the strategic decision, that we are not going to offer anything budgets, anything that is affordable. Okay, it is not our capability, right? Our capability is to make things look good, to make things deliver luxury offering for the customers, right? And that also actually helps the customers to make decision, okay, based on the positioning that the brand is offering, okay. So if the customer say, I'm looking for something affordable, then they are not going to look at brand A, okay, because brand A is luxury, right? Luxuries, right? So premium, right? They are going to look at the other brands, okay. And at the same time, the consumers is also making the decision. Okay, if I select this brand which is affordable, I'm expecting that the price is affordable, the quality is a decent one. Yeah, I can accept it. That's fine. It is still within the range of my acceptable acceptance. Okay. And at the same time, they can't, argue that, yeah, I also want something, premium service and so on and so forth. They can't claim that, okay? But if a different consumer say, hey, I want a luxury item, I want premium item, because I'm a brand-oriented person, then that selection will basically mean that the consumers need to have a deep pockets to purchase that brand. And in other words, the trade-off that this person is making is actually more more pricey type of product. Okay, right now that's therefore we say that the positioning is actually the a strategic trade-off that the company and consumers are making. Okay. So again, these are the four critical components of a positioning statement of a positioning strategy. It should contain the targeted consumers, frame of reference, which is basically about the consumer's goal or need in that industry, in that product category, for instance. The point of difference, which is basically about why the brand is superior to the opposition, why the brand is unique to the opposition, and reason to believe, which is basically about the evidence why the consumers needs to adopt that statement. Okay, frame of reference is basically related to the product category, claiming membership in the product category, and that is related to the goal of the product category. You can think of car industry or soft drink industry, okay? So they will share similarities in the same membership, okay? Now, point of parity, and the other one is point differentiation, which is the opposite of the point of parity, are basically two things that are related actually. So let's have a look at them. If we have if we, let's say, have a brand, okay, our brand may compete with the other brands as well. Let's say this is our brand, okay, brand A. And since we are competing in the same industry, in the same product category, okay, so we may share some similarities, okay. Let's say this is brand B, okay, in the same product category. That similarity actually reflects what we call as points of parity, okay. So we share that characteristics with the other brands like brand B, or let's say we also compete with brand C, for instance. So that characteristic is shared, okay, by all brands competing in the same product category, okay. So that's what we mean by points of parity. Now, points of differentiation is actually a different one, okay. So if this is our brand A, this is our points of differentiation. This is the one that we claim to be unique, all right? That to be the unique features that belong to us, okay? These are the things that we can claim. Hey, yes, I share that. I share the similarities in that industry or in that product category, but this is my uniqueness, okay? I'm different in this area, okay? So if you think about Subway, for instance, they have points of parity. Okay, like fast food in the fast food industry. Okay, like the quick service price, for instance, affordable price, unlike restaurants, for instance, which is more pricey, and availability, which is quite spread. Basically, they are part of the points of parity that Subway shares with the other fast food in restaurants, such as McDonald's, for instance, and so on and so forth, right? But they also have points of differentiation, okay, which is unique to them, okay? Same thing to McDonald's, same thing to KFC, same thing to the other fast food categories as well, okay? So that's points of parity and points of differentiation, okay? Now, a bit more about points of differentiation. It could be based on functional. It could also be based on emotional. The functional things is the functional or differentiation or benefits basically revolve around the concrete benefits, okay? They are related to the features it gives that the brand is offering, okay? Either superior performance, okay? So that is functional, that is rational. Some experts also label it as rational benefits, okay? That revolves around the performance, okay, or anything rational. The next one is about emotional benefits that revolves around how the consumers feel when they use certain brand, or how the consumers look, okay? Yeah, I look great, I feel great after, you know, with this brand, for instance, okay? So they're the two main things, right? Okay, so a bit more about the points of differentiation. Now, putting them together, we have the positioning statement, okay? So we have the frame of reference, okay? We have the brand heat, point of reference, the reason to believe, the target market, and those are points of difference, okay? Some other experts also offer a different formula, which is slightly different to that one, and probably more succinct to that one. Okay, you can also use these points of. You can also use this positioning statement formula. To whom, or target market? To what target market? With what need? Okay, our brand is what concept? Okay, with what points of differentiations and reason to believe, okay? So you can also use this one to make it simple. To this target market, you know, the sport enthusiast, for instance, right? Our brand Nike, or with what need, okay? With need of performance, for instance. Our brand Nike is what concept? Okay, with what point of differentiation? Then you show the point of differentiation of the brand. Okay, right. So that's basically the positioning statement. Now, the other thing I'd like to highlight in this topic is the tools to establish our positioning strategy. Okay, the first thing that we need to establish, that marketers need to consider, is the perceptual map or positioning map, which is quite important. And after that, we need to make decision where we want to compete in our when we establish the positioning strategy. Okay, and of course we need to deliver that using our marketing mix variables. Okay, now this is the perceptual map. This is a typical perceptual map. Okay, in real life we may have more than just two attributes. Okay, the way the consumers define our brand may include more than just two words. Okay, so here, to simplify it, we use two words like price and sportiveness, okay? Well, in real life, it may be more than that, more than just price and sportiveness, okay? It could also be the luxury, it could also be the reliability, for instance, it could also be fuel efficiency, it could also be popularity, for instance. Some brands are more popular than the others, for instance, and so on and so forth, right? So how do we get these attributes? Well, one word: research. Okay, marketers would normally conduct focus group discussion to understand these attributes. Okay, well, what about if we are running out of research budget? Well, what you can do is to conduct the brainstorming with the other marketers and review all brands based on what they have communicated in the markets, right? And then we put them together into a map like this, okay? Here we say that if you look at that, Lexus, BMW, Mercedes, Lamborghini, Ferrari, and Porsche are basically in the same group. While Toyota, Ford, GM, Fiat are in the other group. Okay. So that's the perceptual map. Okay. That is actually the first thing that marketers need to do when it comes to developing a positioning strategy, perceptual map. Okay. Now, the next thing that the marketers need to decide is actually which position that they need to take, assuming that you are actually trying to create a new brand, to launch a new brand, then and assuming that this perceptual map actually reflects, then you have two options. Assuming this perceptual map actually reflects the entire market of car industry, then you have two options. That option is actually the first quadrant here and the third quadrant here. Whether we want to be pricey, okay, and less sportiveness, okay, be kind of a passenger car or whatever it is, but very pricey. And the other one is very sportiveness. The sport, it's quite sportive. It is quite high in terms of sportiveness and less pricey to differentiate ourselves against the other guys. Okay, so that's perceptual map. And of course, the last thing that we need to do is to make sure that we deliver these promise through our marketing mix variables. Okay. Right, so that's another tool to help us when it comes to creating the perceptual map, okay? Right, well, the other thing I'd like to highlight is the value proposition. The concept value proposition is actually related to the value to the concept positioning, and value proposition, you can also argue that value proposition is the overall positioning strategy. Okay, it is the overall positioning strategy because it is actually about a set of benefits that the company promises to deliver. Okay, which is basically the same one to similar to the positioning. Therefore, it is the overall positioning strategy. In other words, value proposition is actually about the consumer's judgment on the value and costs, okay, the value and cost that they need to spend, or the price, okay, the value and price of certain offering, okay. So that's value proposition, okay. All right, so basically they are the main ones that I'd like to discuss, guys, in terms of the positioning. And let's have a look at this one here briefly. Brand, okay, brand, this is what I mean by a brand, a set of associations linked to name, mark, symbol, or combination of those things that differentiate one product or service to the other product or service, okay. And the main point about brand is actually there are four things that I'd like to highlight in terms of the brand that actually is related to brand equity. Okay, and what is brand equity or brand value? Well, it is actually about knowing a brand name, about the consumer's knowledge about the brand that determines their purchase. Okay, or in other words, it is the connection between the brand name and the consumer's decision making. Okay, there are four dimensions of brand equity. The first one is brand awareness. Okay, which is basically about the knowledge, degree of knowledge that the customers have about certain brand. Okay, so if our customers know our brand, if a lot of customers know our brand, that is good. Okay, and the next one is brand association. Okay, which is basically a specific word that the consumers use to describe our brand. Okay, now if you look at that, there should be connection between brand awareness and brand association. We can't build the we can't have the brand association unless the consumers are aware of the brand. Okay. And the next one is brand loyalty, which is basically the degree of commitment of the consumers for the consumers to purchase again our brand. Okay. And last one is perceived. The last one is perceived quality. Okay, how they perceive the quality. Okay, right. So that's basically the main points about the brand, and please go through your learning resources, and I'll see you in the next session.